I don't like sand. I don't like course. Rough, it's coarse. When it gets rough, I don't like sand. When it gets I don't like sand. I don't like sand and irritating. Rough, when it gets sand. When it gets I don't like sand. When it gets everywhere. When it gets rough, I don't like sand. When it gets I don't like sand. It's cold. When it gets I don't like sand. It's cold. When it gets it's cold. When it gets I don't like sand. When it gets irritating. I don't like sand. When it gets everywhere. I don't like sand.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
When it gets everywhere.
I don't like sand. I don't like sand. Coarse and rough, coarse and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. I don't like coarse and it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Rough. It's coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. 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 Irritating. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough. Irritating. Coarse and it gets everywhere. Irritating. Coarse and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. Rough. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Rough. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. 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 Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. Coarse and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. 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 I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere. 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 Coarse and rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. 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 And it gets everywhere.
Defenseless battle droids without suffering a scratch.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. I don't coarse and rough. I don't like. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. 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 Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. I don't like. Coarse and rough. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. I don't like. Coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. 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 I don't like sand. I don't like coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. 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 Irritating. It's coarse. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. Rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough. I don't like irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like coarse. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. 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 I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. I don't like coarse and it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Like sand. Irritating. Coarse and it gets everywhere. Rough and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like coarse and irritating. And it gets everywhere. 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 Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, like irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. 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 I don't like sand. I don't like coarse and rough, coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough. It's coarse and rough. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. Irritating. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. Rough. Irritating, and it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. It's coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough. I don't like irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere.
Was that really necessary?
I don't like sand. I don't like coarse and rough and it's coarse and rough. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. 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 I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. It's coarse and rough and irritating. I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. I don't like. And it gets everywhere. Rough, irritating. And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere. 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 I don't like sand. And it gets everywhere. Coarse and rough, coarse and rough. and it gets everywhere, 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 and it gets everywhere.
I don't like sand.
It's
coarse and rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere. 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 And it gets everywhere.
I don't like sand. I don't like coarse
And it gets everywhere.
I don't like rough.
And it gets everywhere. And it gets everywhere.
Irritating.
And it gets everywhere.
I don't like sand.
It's coarse and rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. I don't
And it gets
like
everywhere.
Sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. I don't like
And it gets everywhere.
It's coarse and rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere.
This is where the fun begins. 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 Where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. This is 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 where the fun begins. Where the fun begins. This is 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 where the fun begins.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations.